I'm Rod Ferguson, the new executive producer of the Diablo franchise, and I feel very lucky to be here with you today. For the first time, Blizzard has brought all the different Diablo games, old and new, under one umbrella. And as head of the franchise, my goal is to make sure that no matter what you play on, no matter where you play, you can look forward to many years of unforgettable Diablo experiences.
Thank God he's wearing a 4 jacket, not an Immortal jacket.
We'd like to take the next couple of hours to have a little fun and bring you up to date on 3 Diablo games we have in development.
We can trust this guy.
Yes, 3. Diablo 4, Diablo Immortal, and announced today, Diablo 2 Resurrected. First up is our Diablo 4 deep dive.
Look at that statue.
Followed by a
Over
visit
here.
from a very dear old friend. Trust me when I say you'll want to
It's like
stay
Lilith
a
or
while
something.
and listen.
Ever since we announced Diablo 4 at last BlizzCon 2019, we've been sharing updates with you guys through our blog, whether it's items, skills, zones, even user interface updates, and you guys seem to have really enjoyed that. Today, to mark the special occasion of BlizzCon Line on Blizzard's 30th anniversary, rather than doing a blog, we're actually going to share lots of video, introduce a new class like we saw in opening ceremonies, and also cover some open world topics, including mounts, camps, and PvP.
Yeah, this is like the ultimate blog post, right? We get to actually hand deliver it. This is the dream. It's all finally out there, and we can talk about all of it.
Just in case some of you guys missed it during opening ceremony, let's take another look at the Rogue Announce video.
Okay. I'll watch this again. Fuck it. I don't care. Let's go. I mean, I don't have a choice. I can't really speed it up, but yeah. I literally said it's a holy man or it's an archer. This is like fucking... That's pretty funny. They fooled you. They wanted you to think it was a holy guy.
But you have to.
Anyways, let's watch again.
Now, pray with me. May Akarat guide and protect me.
May Akarat guide and protect me.
May he shepherd my soul
May he shepherd my soul
and grant it mercy.
And grant it mercy.
What are you doing here? This is not the time.
But this is confession. And I have sinned. I was a thief who stole from those more fortunate. I strayed from your light and found my trade in the shadows. They call it murder. I say, job well done.
Brutal, man. The way she stabs him and then slices it down. It's fucking brutal. It's brutal.
I am a thief, a heretic, a murderer.
Diablo 2 is the ears thing. Yeah, and if who doesn't understand ears,
Will Akarat save
it's
me?
a Diablo 2 thing. Whenever you killed someone, they dropped an ear on the ground, and it had their name on it, so you could have like a token of
You
killing
mock
someone.
our light. But those monsters were a scourge upon my flock. And you were the answer to their prayers.
Then we are settled, and you owe me.
The name you seek is. Thank the heavens for you.
Heavens, I assure you, Father, the heavens didn't send me.
Watch the abilities. Look, there's a slash. That's like an Omni slash almost. I think melee rogue will be fucking fun. It seems like it's really, really high mobility. Like even more. I feel like that last clip right there, for just for a split second, was a boss fight. I hope they announce the 5th class like soon, because I feel like once they announce all 5 classes, that's more realistic to
Wow, I love
you
that
know,
ending.
a release date for beta or something like so
There's
much
two
later.
things. There's the rain of arrows off the mount for the win, and then when that guy takes the ear and he stretches it onto that hook right at the end, it's like, oh.
That ear box never gets old. You know, I always wonder where all those ears from Diablo 2 when you kill other players went.
Now you know there's some creepy guy in a church collecting ears and putting them in a box. Just what we always thought.
No spoilers, but we're going to be hearing a little bit more about World PvP a little bit later in the segment, but ears are definitely making a comeback. But let's go back to the class, because there's just nothing more exciting to be able to introduce to a Diablo game than another class for players to check out.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool thing. We don't get to do this very often, right?
I think it was you that said that, John. There's always room around the campfire.
There's always a little room.
We had kind of like very core archetypes to begin with. The brute strength of the barbarian, the arcane knowledge of the sorceress, kind of a return of a shape-shifting classic with the druid. No RPG lineup is complete without that dexterity class that's kind of like defeating enemies with finesse, with speed. And we kept coming back to just the idea of bringing it to the kind of the godfather of all dexterity-based
SC Legends panel? What is that?
The rogue that we saw in Diablo 1.
I mean, you got to be excited to have the rogue back. I mean, I know that like when we were exploring different classes, like you had talked about some of your experience with Diablo 1, right?
Oh, for sure. So one of the things that's super cool is like the rogue was always able to adapt their play styles. So fans of Diablo 1, Diablo 2 rogues will be able to create.
It's a
very
2v2 in Brood War.
rogues,
It's okay. I don't want to
starting
watch
with
a
the
2v2
weapon
match. It's
selection.
okay.
On the melee weapon side, rogues can use swords and daggers, as well as bows and crossbows on the range.
I really want to know about Diablo 4.
You know, just those sort of dagger attacks mixed with bow attacks. It's like it just looks great on screen.
Or I'll take a request. Chat, do you guys want me to watch the Brood War stuff right now, or would you rather watch the Diablo 4 stuff right now? Put a 1 in the chat if you want to watch StarCraft. Put a 2 in the chat if you want to watch Diablo. 2 Diablo, 1 StarCraft. Okay, there's a lot of 2s. I kind of personally would rather watch Diablo as well. I could watch both, by the way, but I kind of want to watch the Diablo stuff. So I put a 2 in the chat myself. There's a lot of 2s. Let's watch the Diablo stuff. I'm just curious to see what like the abilities are.
The animations and what they do. You think about the druid.
Watch what you want. I'll watch all of it either way.
With sort of his leap attack.
It's not like I'm only gonna because there's VODs, right?
Things
I watch this. If I want to go back, I could go like this. Because now that I just paused it, we're no longer live. I could literally do this. I could be like, you know what? Let's watch that rogue cinematic again.
Who stole from those more fortunate.
So I could watch whatever I want at this point. And now that it's like going live, it's becoming a VOD. You could just go back to and watch whatever you want. So it's all good. We'll just watch the Diablo stuff for now. Maybe I'll watch the Brood War stuff later.
Brute strength of the barbarian, the arcane knowledge of the sorceress, kind of a.
I mean, you got to be excited to have the rogue back. I mean, I know that like when we were exploring different classes, like you had talked about some of your experience with Diablo 1, right?
Oh, for sure. So one of the things that's super cool is like the rogue was always able to adapt their play styles. So fans of Diablo 1, Diablo 2 rogues will be able to create very archetypical rogues, starting with the weapon selection. On the melee weapon side, rogues
I want to
can
pause
use
this for a second.
swords and
I just want to I want to look at the UI, dude. You have 4 stats in your main like stat: Dex, willpower, intelligence, and strength. You have attack, defense, and life. You have let me see the take it mouse off.
daggers.
Okay, shit. Go back just for a split second. I won't pause it like this all the time. I'm just really curious about the UI. You have helmet, chest, glove, what the fuck is that? Oh, that's legs. Sorry, that's leg, boot, amulet, ring. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of gear, of armor, and then you have a weapon, and then you have secondary dual wield daggers. I actually really hope every class gets something like this. Where, hear me out. I'll say this, okay? And I'll let it go on from here. But once I say this, I hope every class gets a thing where they have like a main weapon that they use. So maybe you do use dual wield as your main, or maybe you use your two-handed bow as your main. Because I'm gonna let you guys know a secret right now. You're not gonna use both probably. You're probably like, if you want to min-max, you're probably gonna use one or the other. You're not gonna have a hybrid class. You're gonna probably like really go fucking crazy into melee, or you're gonna go crazy into range. I would imagine. But I hope that if like, here's the thing I hope. The weapon that is not equipped, I hope it still gives you stats. So for instance, you could like wear daggers that suck for melee in terms of like the damage that they deal or whatever, but they give you bonuses, like bonus attributes on the daggers that are good for your bow class. So it's like stat buffers. Just to once again add more customization to your character. I think that'd be fucking sick.
Some crossbows on the ranged side.
You know, just those sort of dagger attacks mixed with bow attacks, it's like, it just looks great on screen. With all the classes having this real strong identity as far as the animations and what they do, you think about the druid and shapeshifting, or the barbarian with sort of, you know, his leap attacks. There's just all these great things that you discover with the rogue that you can't really do with other classes.
I love that you can start cosmetically from such a iconic place where you're wearing the red armor, you kind of look like part of the sisterhood of the Sightless Eye from the original games. You know, you can maybe even add some tattoos into the mix, some scars, make that rogue your own. Or if your fantasy of the rogue is a more traditional RPG outlaw, you're definitely able to create that and put on your kind of hood and hat
it looks
mask.
cool. I like that
be more of a shadowy character.
Like Assassin's
Yeah,
Creed
and
type
the
shit.
character customization, you kind of mentioned it, being able to craft that, you know, that the class of your dreams or your nightmares. It was a feature that I was honestly super nervous about when we started, because we've never had this in a Diablo game. But seeing where it is now, it's one of those things that like I'm super excited about with where we're at. There's just a lot of creativity and fun looks, and you can be that you know, tattooed criminal outlaw, or you can be a more noble looking kind of, you know, sort of like thief with good morals.
Well, one of the things that we kind of kept running with beyond just the cosmetics was customization. We had this this niche to fill in the class lineup that spoke to the finesse player, to the dexterity player, and just that everyone's idea of what that could be was a little bit different, whether it leaned more on range or melee. But we took that a little bit of a step further. We really wanted to have each class in our game have that one thing that makes you go like, that's bullshit when you see a player use it, and then makes you want to re-roll that class because no other class gets it. For the rogue, it's the class specialization. The 3 specializations are combo points, Shadow Realm, and exploit weakness.
I like Shadow Realm because I take the problem and I make it smaller. I mean, it's just, I just pull 3 guys into the Shadow Realm and duke it out, and then I come back in, I'm like, all right, smaller problem.
I love the idea of exploit
like playing a
weakness.
rogue.
The way it works is
wow.
during some of the enemy attacks, players will see an icon flash over the enemy's head, during which time they will get to retaliate with much more damage than an ordinary attack. If you're quick on the draw, this is the specialization for you. I'm just like a little bit skill capped there, and you know, like every time I try to make it work, I'm just a little bit shy of the skill level that's required for that.
It's almost like you're a surgeon, and it requires a really strong ability to assess what's happening all around you.
My personal favorite is the combo point specialization. As you might expect, this ability lets you build multiple combo points, which enhance your spender's effectiveness in combat. It basically, you just like get into this rhythm of combat of like 3 builders to a spender, lets you build up to these big moments. It almost makes like a rhythm game out of combat, which I really enjoy. And the way the class specializations work is you will work with one of the world groups of rogues around the world in Sanctuary that you will find, and do class-specific quests that no other class can do. Whether it's the Sisterhood of the Sightless Eye, the remnants of that order that you choose to work with, or the mercenaries of Kyrgyzstan, or the outlaw smugglers of the swamps of Hawazar, depending maybe on what speaks to your class fantasy, or depending on which specialization speaks to you or you find more powerful, you'll be able to complete that quest line and then activate that specialization, which then you can mix and match with any of the playstyles. So you could be a combo points, ranged, or melee player, but you could also be an exploit weakness range or melee or hybrid player, it just gives the class such huge variety in builds and playstyles.
I love how that ties into the open world aspect. You know, the ability to go to Kyrgyzstan or Hawazar and get these special quests that only the rogue can get. That touches on one of the things that I love that we've done, which is like connecting the weapons and equipment to regions. When you're exploring the world and you pick up a sword in Kyrgyzstan, it's a scimitar, right? If you're up in Skazglan, which is up in the north, it's more of like a broadsword. You know, it's this sort of like this. It's a subtle thing, but I think
I want
really,
them to add back in this game
different
again.
armors that
Like
you
a
get in
big
different
thing.
regions
I think
look
would be
like
really
they're from
good.
The place, and
It's
so
fucking
getting
magic
that
find.
sense of
Like
place
Diablo
in the
2
world
style
is
magic
something
find.
that I just
Like you can
every time I
customize the
play
character
game,
to become
I
a
feel
magic
it,
finder.
I see it in just like subtle ways, and just really enhances the overall sense of immersion and experience. And I just want to see what's around the corner.
The weapons are also like, going back all the way to Diablo 2, just such an integral part of the class, and the ability to augment your weapon through magic, through enhancements, is just something that really spoke to us when we try to tap into the core of the class. Going back to those mercenaries that you could hire, it was always kind of cool to see what kind of special
Four is
arrow
better than
shot
3?
they
Is it
would-
worth
they would
buying?
come with.
Confucius,
And
just
it's
play
something
Diablo
we
2
paid homage
Remaster,
to with
honestly.
the imbue system.
Just-
All the
I
way
would say
from
do that.
Directly
Play
elemental
DT
imbues,
Remastered.
like the frost imbue, which feels a lot like the
That might
the
actually
ice
come out
arrows
really
that
soon.
The D2 mercenaries used to shoot,
Like, very
all the
soon,
way
possibly.
to we expanded it to feel a little grittier, a little darker, into things like poison imbue and shadow imbue. Just the ability to take any sort of attack and kind of mix and match with those imbues.
Once that kind of clicked for me that I could take any ability and imbue it with, you know, either of those elements. Rain of Arrows with Frost and Rain of Arrows with Acid is completely different, right? Like you're essentially freezing the battlefield, and then I just love Poison Imbue because of the gruesome deaths that all the monsters experience. And we've had a ton of fun making that art, so it's always fun to kind of see just a field of goatmen melt into nothing. You know, you just kill everything on the screen in a gory mess.
Path of Diablo is good.
It's a really flexible way to take a build that you're.
I'm pause it one more time and just say this really fast. If you could actually, if there is a way that you could play like a Path of Diablo mod on remastered Diablo 2, that would be fucking awesome. That would be super cool.
You're already comfortable with, that you already like. Say you're really comfortable with Flurry and Shadow Step as kind of your melee skills, and you find yourself needing more crowd control. Without changing your playstyle, you can just add the Frost Imbue to your bar, and now you're able to use those same abilities to slow down enemies or build up to a full freeze.
Yeah, and Frost Imbue plays pretty well with group play as well, right? You know, where I can freeze an enemy and somebody else can blow it up.
Or also the way that chills work in the game, they build up to a full freeze. So if your best buddy is a sorceress player, your chill spells and your Frost Imbue chills will actually build up faster than if you were using a single player. So just ask to open with Blizzard before you Frost Imbue, and you'll basically be freezing enemies twice as fast, which is super awesome synergy. So the last thing that's worth spending some time talking about the rogue is like how mobile the class is, just how able the class is to kind of close the gap between themselves and the enemy. Even while they're mounted, you might find yourself, a full screen away and just dismounting into a rain of arrows, closing the rest of that gap with maybe like a dash, and then getting back out of there, dropping some caltrops. They can basically control the fluid motion of combat in a way that no other class can. That's something that beyond all of the other customization options that you have, whether it's the playstyle, whether it's the range at which you engage with enemies, whether it's the cosmetics, just the sheer mobility of the class lets you just adapt to the situations. Even when you would have totally been toast as another class, a room full of elites, you're able to use offensive abilities in creative ways. Abilities
also,
like...
I'm gonna pause this and say one thing, because I don't know how many of you guys know this, and I just saw the guy who was playing this demo. I just saw him do it. But if you guys didn't know, there's a new feature that's being added into Diablo 4 that's never existed in Diablo 1, 2, or 3, and it's a dodge button that has like a global cooldown, so you can't just like be immune essentially. I don't. There might be a cooldown with it in terms of like seconds or some shit. I don't know exactly how it works with that, but just simply put, There's a Dark Souls style dodge mechanic now inside of Diablo 4. So you can actually look at the graphic of an attack and you can get good at timing it and you can dodge attacks that way. Instead of like walking your character out of the graphic itself, you can actually like at the last second like hit that like dodge button to dodge a lot of shit. So it's actually pretty cool. I think it's gonna be a cool addition to like, it adds the skill ceiling to actually Diablo gameplay a lot more, I feel like.
Shadow stuff, right? Like abilities like Shadow Realm, abilities like Dash. So you're able to kind of like use them to your advantage in a way that gets you out of a very dangerous situation by picking that one lone skeleton archer that maybe is not surrounded by everything else. You can shadow step there, get out of the way, and live to fight another day, which just feels like such a rogue thing to do.
When I play the rogue, I really do feel like surgical precision. I really feel like I can move through the whole screen without. It feels kind of effortless and almost sometimes a little unfair. It's like when I go into Shadow Realm and I'm dashing, I'm like, am I cheating? Did I just break the game?
And we'll hear more about PvP in a little bit, but I just couldn't go without mentioning that some of our most feared PvP players on the team play rogue, and just the way they're able to like surprise you. You might be with a group of friends and just that mobility lets them go to the middle of the group, unleash a rain of arrows that's frost imbued, and before you know it, you're all frozen.
Everybody plays it for
looking
PvP.
at a rogue
it's like a Shadowlands or the Shadowlands subtlety rogue.
There are fewer scarier things in our game right now than that.
So Luis, this was this was like the ultimate blog post. This has been a lot of fun getting to share a new addition to the campfire. And of course, there's probably going to be more in the future, right? We always say there's a little bit more room around that campfire.
That's right. And that pretty much wraps it up for the Rogue. So why don't we go to Joe and Karina and learn a little bit more about those open world features that we promised.
Yeah, I'm not playing Starcraft right now,
Thank you to
guys.
Luis and John for introducing
maybe
the
later.
Rogue, which I'm really excited that we finally got a chance to talk about and announce to the community. And we're here today to talk to you about Diablo 4 and the open world. Now, I think maybe the best way to start this conversation, Karina, would be just for me to ask you, like, what are you most excited about what we're adding in Diablo 4 for the open world? Like, what feature, what mechanic, what are you most excited to talk about first?
I am really excited about just exploring the world. I am a huge completist naturally, that's the way I play, and I love exploring and looking under every single nook and cranny. The more this game has been growing, particularly since last BlizzCon, the more fun I am having just riding around the open world on my mount and exploring everything I possibly can.
Yeah, it's really fun, I think, now that we've kind of taken Sanctuary and just made it so much larger when you're playing through the game. When you compare it to like Diablo 3 or Diablo 2, there's tons of like exploration and movement throughout the world in those games, obviously, but now that we've really been able to embrace the open world concept, we can really dive much deeper into like how does Sanctuary actually all fit together, like be able to ride from Skosglen to the Fractured Peaks, it's very, very interesting that way. One of the things about that I think is really neat is the collection aspect of mounts. So I mean, there's all these horse breeds and other mounts you can find throughout the world, from completing puzzles or just finding hidden locations or slaying certain particular kinds of monsters. Find various horses or things to customize your horse with, like horse armor. There are hoof plates you can get and trophies to show off your accomplishments. There's lots of different ways to make sure that you can personalize your mount, make it really feel like it's your companion.
Yeah, and it's really cool that like you mentioned with the horseshoes, you get to actually change the speed at which your horse can run. And it's something I like, to be able to customize the horse to the type of gameplay that I like to enjoy as a player. And it's really, really fun. I like the amount of variety that you give us.
And I mean, there's more to mounts than just that as well. So like one thing we know we didn't want to do with mounts in Diablo 4 is we didn't want to have like jousting, this idea of like fighting from horseback. It's not really the Diablo experience, right?
Yeah, that's something I'm super excited for. Like we showed last BlizzCon, we had the sorceress, we showed her dismount skill, Ice Dash, where she shoots forwards off her mount and destroys everything in her path. Well, with the rogue, we got to have a little bit more fun with it. And the animation department has done a fantastic job of having her leap up into the air and fire down like the rain of arrows that destroys everything. It's really, really cool. It feels really good.
The idea of like leaping from your saddle and just raining arrows down on your enemies as you pass by, getting down the fray and then starting to stab people and poison people, like that is spot on what we're looking for. Being able to jump in, engage with enemies from your horse, and then just fight it out, duke it out using your skills and everything else like we want.
It's interesting that your mount can't get damaged, but if a monster actually attacks you while you're mounted, you will actually be forced to dismount. So there is a
You see how
flip
that
side of actually
she almost got one shot?
judging for yourself when
Good
you
God.
do want to use that skill in order to prevent you from being forced off unintentionally.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of gameplay there to make sure that you're using it in a way that is most appropriate to help you get where you're trying to go, and also fight the monsters you want to fight. One of the things I'm most excited about for the open world right now is this feature we have called camps. So camps are basic.
I'm gonna pause it and I'm gonna say a question that I think is the most relevant to me. And you guys maybe you guys think about this, maybe you don't. I wonder if they're gonna talk about this. But I am very curious to know the depth of how much they're gonna make open world in this game. Like, how deep is it gonna go? Is this game gonna be a really heavy open world game altogether? Or is it like only pieces of it that are more or less optional open world, and you can usually, like, let's say you get a waypoint and the open world part is more or less over. And this is why I think it matters. If you play hardcore mode and you're open world and you get fucking killed by somebody, are you just dead? Because I just want you guys to know that I feel like the level of griefing in this game is going to be fucking really high. If the answer is yes to that. Am I okay with it? Yeah, more or less. But if you're forced to be open world with other players all the time, I feel like the concept of open world is going to be weird for hardcore. It's going to be weird.
Basically, these strongholds of evil out in the overworld. You got to remember that, decades ago, during the events of Reaper of Souls, when Malthael rose to power, the Reapers killed like 9 out of 10 people throughout Sanctuary. Like a tremendous number of people passed away. Now there's a big power vacuum out here, decades later. And these monsters have started to move into these places. Bandits, monsters, goatmen.
They don't mix hardcore and softcore together. But you got to realize, if there's like a level 50 hardcore player who just camps like level 12 hardcore players, like he'll just kill them all day.
Get to kind of wander through these spaces and begin to
Which is what I mean.
them for the people.
So like if you're forced to play open world, they'd have to have like a toggle to like not see other players or something.
They're their own unique fixed place in the world.
Unlike quests is something that happens randomly in the world and you can come across them anyway. Camps are a permanent fixture that you as the player, when you come across that evil, you can actually have a real impact on the open world that everyone else can see, because once you have defeated that evil, one of the really fun things is that you basically unlock that camp and you make a new waypoint that previously didn't exist for yourself, but like suddenly all the marketplaces open up and now you have a blacksmith vendor in a location that previously didn't exist, which I think is really, really cool.
Now, what we're looking at here, this was a village, the village of Karayisu, which now has fallen to ruins. The people here in the dry steppes had a problem. The problem was there were bloodthirsty cannibals that dwelled nearby and would regularly raid their community. And the people had to come up with a solution. They weren't strong enough to defend themselves from these cannibals, so they made a dark bargain with a demon. And they were able to gather enough power to push these cannibals out and protect their community, but not without great cost, as we can see here. You're kind of helping resettle parts of Sanctuary in many ways when you take these camps back from the enemy. Vendors will come back, and now suddenly there might be like new quest givers, new stories that need to be told. Dungeon entrances can appear in some of these places afterwards. Like there's all kinds of things that occur after you take over the camp and liberate it from these forces of darkness. And again, it's just so cool to see you permanently change the world as you find these places and kind of wander through and solve these problems. One of the other neat things about camps, and in general, like the overworld, just broadly speaking, is we have so many more opportunities now to kind of play with movement.
It pushes the bar vertically as well as horizontally, and we now have been playing around with the idea of jumping across chasms to allow the player to get access to a location that they previously didn't have.
There's all kinds of areas where players like find their own path, allowing them extra movement options they haven't had in previous Diablo games.
We are also in a vertical top-down camera for the environment, and so it really breaks up the plane that you typically see as, like, not only as a developer, as an animator, but also as a player. There's such a huge variety of things that you can possibly do to mix it up and make things a little bit different. There's like certain puzzle elements to it. That it's not so straightforward and not always obvious. So it's not just a matter of running through the world and getting, to your goal. It's you have to think about it.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Karina, I know that you're very excited about PvP.
I'm a huge fan of PvP. I love the first time that we all actually had a chance to, as a whole team, play PvP, because the amount of feedback that generated, I think it took design like 3 days to go through it all. And what that showed me is that I find everyone they either love it or they hate it. And I personally love it. I really enjoy it. So the way that PvP works is that the hatred of Mephisto has been bubbling up from hell and has created these areas in the open world that you can freely walk into.
Okay.
That kind of consumes you and makes you turn against your fellow players.
PvP, even in these areas,
It's optional.
these fields of hatred, right? Even in these spaces, it's not like mandatory. So these are optional places players can choose to go to kind of collect shards of hatred that they can collect from like killing monsters, from completing events, opening chests, all kinds of ways to earn these things, not necessarily just killing players. And as you earn these shards of hatred, they're kind of in an unpurified state. They're in a basic state. You need to bring them to a purification event in order to turn them into a currency that you can then use in the nearby like small encampments around the fields of hatred. And what's really neat about that is that when you're trying to purify these things, that's when everybody nearby finds out and hears like, oh, okay, well, someone's actually trying to complete a purification ritual. We need to go and kill those players and take all of their shards before they finish. But once you purify them, they're yours.
Dude. That's so fucking rippy. Oh, I'm not gonna lie, guys. That sounds super fucking fun. I can only imagine what that's gonna look like in hardcore. That sounds like I just hope that it's not like a Zerg fest, where like every time you're gonna purify, 20 fucking people show up to kill your ass, and you're like, great.
Of course, you can't lose them. But before they're purified, they're free game.
Yeah, I think it's really important.
You have to do it at like
that,
4 in the morning when no one's on.
Even if you don't want to engage with other PvP players, you can actually explore those areas and collect the shards of hatreds from specifically monsters. But the second you need to then turn them in and purify them into a currency where you can spend them on gear, trophies, and other content, you actually are hostile yourself and actually can be attacked during that single moment. But I think that really creates a lot of opportunity for you to team up with friends for just that one little moment in order to gain the reward that you spent so much time collecting.
So you called out earlier that the shards...
Dude, just imagine. There's like 5 of your friends online, and then one of your friends is like, hey guys, I'm going to purify my shards. Come help me. And you guys are all like, yeah, okay. You all make a party, and you go try to purify shards. And some other group is trying to do the same thing, and it's like a fucking annihilation where your whole group just gets fucking steamrolled and you all die. And then like everyone's just like, fuck your shards, dude. Like everyone loses their character to try and have one guy get shards. Oh man, dude, I'm not gonna lie, that sounds fucking fun. I actually think that's gonna be pretty cool.
Of hatred are used for like some of the vendors you can find in the fields of hatred. There are some special vendors that only kind of arrive in these areas. They'll have special costumes or new mounts and weapons and things along those lines. Nothing that's like strictly more powerful than stuff you can get in other parts of the game, but stuff that really like speaks to your desire as a PvP player. And I think one of the things that's really kind of neat about the system in general is that as a player, if you choose to go hostile, betray other players that are near you, try to get as many shards of hatred as you can, you're going to slowly begin to kind of like infuse yourself with that same curse of Mephisto. And you're going to become a vessel of hatred. Now, once you do that, everyone within a very large radius of you is going to be able to see you as a threat on the map. And they're going to get a bonus for...
Okay, I'm just going to stop it right here for just a second. I'm going to take a bit of a guess here. Okay? This is my guess. The feature he just said, like already it's sounding fucking ridiculous for hardcore. Like I'm literally thinking hardcore. It already sounds like insane for hardcore. There is no like with what he just said though, there is no fucking way. I will be so surprised, but there is no fucking way if you die in PvP that you actually die. I guarantee you do not die if you die while PvPing while you're playing hardcore. Like your character respawns. I think in hardcore, you only would die if you die to mobs, outside of the PvP zone. Then you're dead for real. But if they have a bounty system, there's no fucking way you die for real. There's no way.
For killing.
But this does sound really fun.
So when that occurs, you have a set amount of time you need to survive. And if you're able to do that without running away or jumping in a town portal and trying to escape, if you're able to do that and finish that period and manage to escape or defeat your people who are coming to try to destroy you, you're going to get a really big bonus at the end. And that's been really, really exciting to watch in our playtests already, as people are like kind of wrestling for this status and then trying to defend it once they actually achieve it.
Yeah, and there's also the ears that you get to collect as a trophy. It harkens back to D2, where I think you could sell the ears for 1 gold. I don't know if we're going to be doing that. I know we were playing around with them as a currency at one point, but I think right now it's just a cool trophy that you get to collect and show off.
Yeah, right now, very, very cool trophy. The thing was really neat about the Diablo 2 ears, like you could fill up your whole inventory with them, obviously, but being able to see like the people that you took the ears from, like seeing their character names on there, was always like the interesting, fun part. Kind of like proof, like, yeah, I got that person that time, right? So we want to make sure that we embrace that aspect of it. That's the important part for us. I think that's going to be a really great callback to Diablo 2 PvP.
Right, yeah. So I love where PvP is going, and I love that it is such it's only one part of how large and open the world is, and really harkens back to the adventurer in me when I play the game. How do you feel?
I'm super excited as well. I mean, there's so much to look forward to in Diablo 4 right now. Like what we talked about today just scratches the surface. In general, as a Diablo fan, there's a lot to be looking forward to in the franchise in the future. Thank you so much for watching today.
Okay.
We look forward to
They didn't elaborate on hardcore mode. Dude, there's no way. I guarantee the way that works is hardcore is like death is not permanent in PvP zones. There's no fucking way. If it was, I would still play it, but I feel like most people wouldn't. I feel like they're
Dolby
gonna.
is a proud partner of BlizzCon Line.
They're not gonna
Watch
make it
Shock versus the world in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. Only
That sounds.
in the Dolby Access app.
I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm excited
Coca-Cola,
about
the
PvP
official
in Diablo
refreshment
4.
of
It sounds
BlizzCon
fun.
Line.
I just hope they make the rewards actually worthwhile and not garbage. Like if they make the rewards, if they give you actual incentive to PvP as well on top of that, that's gonna be super fucking good.